What's going on, everybody? It's DJ Sketch and welcome back to the channel. I want to go ahead and peel back the layers of the newest release from EA Software and BioWare Studios. Of course, it's the one and only Anthem. And I know this one's been polarizing, to say the least. There's been a lot of ups and a lot of downs with this game in particular across all platforms. I'm surprised the Xbox One has been the least affected, but we'll get into that in just a little bit. And I wanted to preface this by saying that the Mass Effect trilogy, alongside a few of the other previous BioWare games, I was very much a fan of. So when I heard about this a few years ago, I was actually very excited to see where this might go. And so, before we bang on about that too much, let's just go ahead and get right into it. I broke this down into two sections. I'm kind of going to go weigh it by pros and cons. I'll go one for one pro versus one con, and then throw in a little bit extra stuff at the end as far as new things that have developed since this game has released, because there's actually a fair amount to talk about here. So the world itself, Bastion, the world itself actually looks really good. I noticed this right away playing the beta or the demo that was out a few weeks ago, and I noticed that right away. Like, the actual environments themselves they're gorgeous, to put it plainly. The map itself is huge, so you actually have a fair amount of stuff to look around at and some varied environments along with it. The tombs were my favorite part. Also, the Fortress of Dawn, that whole mission, once you actually start seeing all these ruins and things like that, that's where everything really started to shine, especially going underwater. The underwater bits look good, and also the actual, the caves and all that kind of stuff. That all looks sick. But also, that's going to go right into one of the first cons of the game. The world is pretty. Yes, it's very pretty. But also, a lot of times, it is empty. Like, you'll fly over certain areas. You'd expect to see a lot of stuff going on. You might see a little skirmish here. But then you're going to fly around for maybe 3 to 4 minutes. Nothing. Rinse and repeat. So it's a good side. It's a good and a bad thing. Kind of already rolled into one there. And it's just surprising, you would think, especially when you compare this to games like Destiny, or even The Division, or really any other open world game, Borderlands especially. Whenever you go from area to area, there's something going on relative to that area. And this game, just for whatever reason, at least at the current state that it's in, has just yet to do such a thing. I'm not really sure why that is, but maybe that'll come up sometime in the future with updates at some point. And second, the flying. The flying, honestly, is probably one of the best parts of the game. And there's a few other really good parts of this game as well, so this isn't the only one. But the flying, honestly, the verticality you have as far as what you can do in the suit, and also with the 4 different javelins, you can actually have certain styles of flight that actually are rather varied. The Interceptor is honestly my favorite one to fly around with. The Storm is more of a glide. They all fly about the same speed. I think the Colossus, I know, is the slowest of the 4. Obviously, since it's a lot bigger. The flight feels pretty good, honestly. But the only thing about the flight that I would have to say is a complaint is that there is a ceiling. You really can't just keep going and going up into the heavens, even though at times you really want to. Once you go up to a certain point, it'll just start kind of slingshotting you back down. And also the overheating, which I get the reasoning as to why the overheating is there, but at the same time, it's especially when you start getting into flying around, and then we notice it takes forever to get to certain points. With the addition of flight, you're overheating just trying to get to objectives, but if you go down to a water source, a waterfall will cool you off immediately. Otherwise, you have to fly almost basically skimming in the water to get your suit to cool down a little bit. So there's just parts of that I wasn't really crazy about, but at the same time, I could kind of let it go because it was just, I get it. I get it. You're trying to have some sense of realism here. And of course, let's go ahead and get to the third good thing here. This is mostly a good thing. The gameplay. So, I know this is probably going to be the point of contention with a lot of things. And the gameplay itself, it's decent. The gunplay feels pretty good. If you've played any Mass Effect game, the combat should feel very familiar, except now you can jetpack around. I know you had jetpacks in the third Mass Effect, at least with the multiplayer. So that feels familiar, and that part actually was fairly into. And the only things like I really say that are bad about the combat is that at times it will get repetitive because you are going to be fighting these same enemies. You have basically three factions: the Outlaws, the Dominion, and the Scar. And you'll see all three of these a lot. You're going to see the common enemies also a lot. And also you're going to see, actually, probably not as many wyverns as you would expect, but there is some variation with the enemies that you'll see in-game. But also at the same time, the repetitive nature of this, there's one thing that also really like drives the whole thing down, and it drives it down quite heavily. And it's the load times. The load times in this game are absolutely atrocious. When it takes, as an example, when it takes 4 to 5 load screens to do a 15-minute mission, that's ridiculous. Because honestly, I had to put other games in and play other things that were similar just to have a side-by-side comparison. And the load times, I mean, I get that Anthem is doing a lot of things, but it's doing them all very, very slowly. Slowly to the point where it's like it's crippling the experience a lot of times, because when you start to really get immersed into this, you get pulled right back out because of a load screen. And the load screens are not exciting as it's a static image. I think the background moves a little bit with a little pattern, but that's really all you get. There's nothing to look at here. And also, we'll get into one more pro before we really start kind of just really getting into this. The customization itself, as far as what you can do with your javelins, that part's pretty cool. Honestly, they're kind of generous with the in-game currency, so you can play around and do all the stuff, like adjust your helmets, legs, all that kind of stuff if you want to. I'm not really big on customization in this aspect. I don't really care. And but it's there. It's there for people that want that. It's totally there. So you can have fun with that if you want. And or just leave it alone, or you can do whatever you want. You can buy pre-made ones. You get a lot of in-game money, so you really shouldn't have to spend any money at all in this game if you want to do that. And also, big up the N7 skins, like themed you got there. Like those skins, by far the sickest thing in the game. And as far as everything else, now we're gonna get into things that honestly, this is what really are like the dings that really like just drop the scores for this game. Aside from the long load times, some of the AI is really lackluster, and also some of the loot drops that they're going to be giving you are not all that great. The loot is, to say it's, to say that the looting is plain is an understatement, because you will be seeing a lot of the same items, just with a little bit higher damage, or in some instances, lower damage. And even at the beginning of the game, there was a glitch that where you got the best weapon right from the beginning, the Defender rifle, and that was stronger than Masterwork items in the game, which again, like, you just basically defeated the purpose of grinding out the process. Like, you just it was just completely undone all in one fell swoop, which I don't know why this would even get to this point of the game on release, but what do I know? We just play these games, right? And as far as with the loot, you'll get same items. That much you kind of come to expect with a game like this. And the items will vary slightly between each javelin, so as you play as one, you'll get a lot of things for the javelin that you're currently in, but also get a couple for another javelin, should you choose to try that. That part is okay, but also just the amount of drops and just the variety of things that you're going to get, like through mission, like a lot of it's really not going to be special, and a lot of it is a reskin of the same thing. For the amount of customization that went into the javelins themselves, the weapon variety is just not there. It's just not, which is a shame, because it honestly, it could be. It definitely could have been. The voice acting and the characters that you'll meet, I mean, a lot of them, like, there's a few you might grow to like, but also because this is the one thing that is very much a strong suit with this as well, that the voice acting, for the most part, decent. It's decent. And you'll see characters that you like. You're going to see a lot of characters you're probably going to hate. And overall, the voice acting, it's passable. I mean, it's a BioWare game, so they kind of do that with the whole developing characters. I'm just a little bit disappointed that the choices that you make with the dialogue, with the Mass Effect Lite dialogue system they put in, where you have one of two choices, has no overall effect on gameplay. Even if a character gets pissed at you for a second, the next time you see him, it's like, oh, hey, what's up? Everything's cool. It's like, there's no consequence. there are no consequences, which kind of defeats the purpose of even having a dialogue tree. I mean, just if that's the case, you might as well just let people just play through it at their own leisure and let the computer say what they're going to say and then go about your business, because that's the part that takes forever, which leads me into another downside. The amount of dialogue compared to gameplay was also a little bit steep, because there are parts that you're literally locked in Fort Tarsus, which is the common area, and you can't do anything else until you finish talking to all these NPCs, having these, at this point now we know for sure, meaningless conversations up to a point of getting a story mission, and which there are a few of. There are a lot of missions to do, but there are points to where it's just going to be at a standstill, because you have to go find this person in the map and talk to them about whatever random thing just to have the mission begin. And that, it just, again, slows everything down. It doesn't break the immersion, but the Fort Tarsus parts, compared to when you're actually out flying around in Bastion, the Bastion parts are far more interesting. So, overall, I know it kind of went overtime with this, but at the same time, I wanted to make sure that we covered everything. And also, there's the issue of, I don't know, I'm hoping they've resolved this so far, but Anthem was actually bricking PS4 systems, causing it to actually perform really hard crashes and resets, to the point where people couldn't even use their PS4s anymore. There was no reports of this coming to the Xbox platform, but at the same time, I'm really hoping that's not going to happen, because that would be a shame. Overall, the ideas and the concepts that are presented here, they're done in a mostly okay fashion. Emphasis on okay at parts, because there were a lot of things that are just flat out just don't work properly with this game. And also, since it's an online only game, there's parts that just flat out don't work sometimes. There's no in-game chat, and also there's just parts of it, depending on your connectivity with everybody else that's in the world, and especially considering it's just going to be you and the crew of 3 other people that you drop in with, there's just, it just like sits prey to a lot of issues. Like, there was also another time when I had a set of challenges that you could not progress the game further until you finished. You had to pick up 3 javelins, and with the connectivity went down, there were several javelins around, I couldn't pick up any of them until I reset the game. So that's one thing, that's another issue. But let's go ahead and get on with it. So with this one, I'd have to say, in the current state that it's in at the moment, this game definitely needs more time to marinate. You might want to go ahead and put this one back in the oven, because it's still not quite done. I mean, you kind of get that, especially once you've started getting into the end game. The strongholds and the free roams are the best part. I'll go ahead and say that right now as far as the missions. Pretty much the same way that when Killzone came out, they were claiming that was going to be the Halo killer, and it wasn't. You got the same thing here. This is far from the Destiny killer or any other looter shooter killer. This one's just kind of there at the moment. It is far from perfect, but also it is not the worst thing I've ever played, but it's far from the best. So, in short, with this one, if I really had to recommend picking this up, I would definitely wait until there is a very deep discount for this. I would not pay retail for this, even though I already have. Either that, if you're really curious and want something to do for a weekend or two, just Redbox it or get Gamefly, use one of those. Or if you have a buddy that's bought it, borrow their copy. And if I really had to slap a number rating on this, I'd have to give it like a 6.5. Because this one, it's not awful, because there are parts you will genuinely enjoy. Those are there. But there's a lot of parts that are going to make you want to rip your hair out, with just how tedious and just dumb they are. Because especially coming from a company of this pedigree, you expect a lot more. And I think everybody that bought this expected a lot more. The updates are free, so that's one cool thing. So we'll see what changes with this in the future. And I hope you found this helpful. If you want to talk about this one, drop a comment down below. That would be great to have a discussion about this, because I'm sure there's a lot of things that a lot of people are talking about with this game. Hopefully some good ones later on down the line. But that's going to wrap it up for today, folks. I'll see you on the next one.